All right, I got another one for you guys. Going to be talking about marketing budgets for games and whether they're necessary, and also just get into some details about that because they're not as high as I thought they were. They are pretty close, but I always kind of made the assumption that the development budget is the same as the marketing budget. So if you spend $100 million to develop it, you're going to spend $100 million to market it, as kind of a loose rule. So I've kind of approached my overall budgeting for games in that capacity, and that was a little too high. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about whether all these massive marketing budgets are even doing anything, if they have any effect. Like if you spend $200 million to market your game, and it doesn't go anywhere. Could have you spent like $20 million to market that game and had the same end result? Could have you spent $20 million to have a successful marketing campaign with lots of sales? Whereas you would have spent 200 or 300 million to do that. So we're going to talk about that, whether this is actually effective, whether it actually matters to put all this money into this. And I highly question it, just as a little spoiler about that discussion. But we're going to talk more in depth about that and have some examples. So let's just jump right into it. Before we do, gameplay today is Hellbreak Demo. I'll put a link in the description again for the page on Steam so you can check that out at your leisure. And let's just jump right in. So this article comes from Tweaktown. Publishers reveal how expensive games are to make, discuss AAA game budgets. So this is mainly an article about how game development budgets and overall game budgets have been just ballooning as of late, and everything is more expensive to make. And so that is basically, this article is basically trying to justify that $70 price tag because the game budgets are so massive. And this actually is a report on, or an article on a report, this CMA's final report decision. So this is kind of like effectively saying, the MSRP of $70 is not, is not out of nowhere. It's very expensive to make a game, and we need this $70 to do anything, and this, that, and the other thing. Leave that at the door. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't think $70 is necessary. I don't think $100 plus million budgets for a lot of these games are necessary either, but that's a discussion for another day. So the really interesting part about this article that I wanted to talk about is down here. They talk about their development budgets as opposed to their marketing budgets and kind of summing them together to justify that $70 price tag. But it's really interesting to see here because we've got this first example. It looks like 150 million euro pre-launch development costs and 50 million for marketing. So that is this first one right here. So that's like a third of the development budget is for marketing. Another one right here. This is 80 million to almost 350 million per title, and costs reaching up to 310 million. So I'm going to make the assumption that that 310 million marketing is for the $350 million game for development budget. So that ends up being an 89% value of the development budget for marketing. Continuing on, I mean, we've got costs between 110 and 380 million with no marketing budget on that one. But then this fourth one here, you can see development budget between 90 million and 180 million, whereas the marketing budget could range between 50 and 150 million. So that is a range between 56 and 83% of the development budget. So we're looking at, it's not a one-to-one. It's at best 90% and even down to as low as a third of the development budget. And then these guys also have this specific example, which is 660 million for development, and then 550 million for marketing. So that's 83% on the nose. That's that high range of this 90 to 50 and 180 to 150 million. So it's on that high range of 83% for this company. So you're looking at basically a range with that outlier of a third, but basically a range of like 60 to 80%, going up to 90 and down to 50, I would say. So me personally, I think the average development budget to marketing budget ratio is probably going to be about 75%. So that's probably where I'm going to start with on my estimates going forward. Also, just kind of reading into this and reading into the between the lines, I'm starting to think that marketing budgets are a reflection of what the title is and to a degree how effective they think that marketing budget would be. for example, I don't think they're spending much on Fortnite marketing because they've already got their captured audience. They don't need to do much in that capacity. So that a marketing budget there would be less. Like the yearly sports games, every Madden 2024, 2025, 2026, FIFA, the same idea. People are coming back year after year, so I don't think they're going to invest in as big of a marketing budget as they would otherwise for a game like that. Probably the same with Call of Duty. It's probably a proportion differently too. Like it's more targeted to let their existing audience know about the new game as opposed to trying to capture new players. Because at this point, a series game like that comes out every year or every couple of years or 3 years or whatever, they're not looking to capture more audience. They're just looking to keep what they have and use what they have with word of mouth to get more people. And that's kind of how they expand their titles in that capacity. So a newer game like Conquered or Helldivers 2, I would say that those are more in respect to trying to capture those new players, because Helldivers 2, granted it's a sequel, but Helldivers 1 was not as popular. So I think they probably treated it like a new game in terms of marketing, at least. So, and those are actually going to be our 2 examples down the road. But yeah, for as far as my perspective is concerned, I'm going to start at that 75%. I'm going to base my decision on whether it should be 75 or lower, based on the game and kind of the context of the situation, and then also get a feel for, how often am I seeing it out in the wild? How many ads am I seeing for it? How many, gaming rags are talking about it, trying to prop it up? Those things all have an effect on the budget, and I think if you see a lot more of that, then you can say it's probably closer to that 75%. If you don't see a lot of that, it's probably closer to that 50%, 56%, what have you. So I'm going to kind of make a decision based on that, and that's kind of where I'm going to go forward with this. That does certainly change some of my estimates from previous videos, but not much. I think a lot of the games, obviously, a lot of the games that I've talked about, they had those development budgets very close to that, probably close to that 80, 90%. So it's not that big of a drop, and the fact of the matter is, a lot of the games that failed that I talked about, that I said this isn't going to make its money back, that few handful of 10, 20% lower budget overall is not going to make any difference, because they were just so far under that it didn't matter. And Conquered is going to be the example of that. So moving forward to the effectiveness of all this, and really talking about what we're talking about in terms of dollar per dollar of sale. I wanted to really kind of get into that, and I'm gonna give you guys just the gameplay here so we can just kind of chat. So my thought here is that these gaming marketing budgets are massive, and at the end of the day, a lot of these titles are falling flat on their face regardless. So my thought is that maybe this marketing stuff doesn't actually matter anymore, and you kind of see that even with YouTube ads and website ads. I mean, CPM rates are in the toilet, and the ads for me, when I see an ad on YouTube, which they changed their thing and now you see ads a lot more. But yeah, I mean, it has no effect on me. I mean, I just wait for that skip button. I don't care about the ad. I don't care about what it's saying. I'm just waiting for that skip button to move on, and it has zero effect on me. So every ad that they spend to see it, for me to see it, that's money wasted, in my opinion. I mean, every single one. It doesn't even matter if it's something I'm interested in. Chances are, whatever it is, if I'm interested in it, I already know about it before that ad's gonna roll anyway. So, effectiveness of ad campaigns, of marketing strategies, of all of these approaches, I would say it's not as effective as it used to be. And the other aspect of that is kind of pushing this forward in the gaming outlets and the gaming rags. Nobody reads those anymore. Nobody trusts their opinion anyway. So spending money to showcase your game on Kotaku or IGN or any of these other gaming rags, to be perfectly honest, TweakTown itself, spending money to showcase your game there, isn't going to have the effect it once did maybe in the 2000s. So I don't think that these marketing budgets are really reaching what they need to reach. I think marketing has to take a different approach these days. And once I get a game worth trying to market, I'm gonna try some things out myself because why not? It's not something that is in my wheelhouse by any stretch of the imagination. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think the traditional approach to marketing is going to matter at all. Certainly not for an indie game, but when I get in a game out there, I'm going to experiment and I'm going to do some things differently than a lot of other indie developers and certainly a lot of AAA and AA. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, if you're not willing to experiment on yourself, then I guess I don't have a right to talk about this. So I'm gonna do that experiment myself when I have an opportunity to do so. So moving forward, we're gonna look at those examples and kind of prove my point here, prove my theorem out with those two examples. And the first one obviously is going to be Concord. Now Concord is a $40 game. So is Helldivers 2. So they're on parity as far as price. Concord, the budget is estimated to be about $400 million. So I'm going to say it's 2/3 of that budget for marketing. So $300 million, or 3/4. So $300 million. So that's like the high end. But with their ultimate sales, I mean, you could even go down to, let's just take that, let's just say that it's 300 million. Owners 25 to 60,000 on Steam. I mean, you can see it right here. Maximum peak 697. I mean, this thing flopped so hard, it's not even funny. But even assuming that consoles did significantly better, like multiplying this by a factor of 10, which I don't think is applicable because I believe this was a Game Pass game as well. So you're not getting any sales there. It's just, a fraction of the Game Pass monthly subscription that month. So even if you multiply that by a factor of 10 and take the best number, let's just say 60,000 times 10 times 40. So that's still, 24 million. Yeah, 24 million. And just the development budget is 400 million. Marketing is 300 million. You're talking, if it's 24 million, so that's like 8% of your marketing budget you made back. That's just abysmal. And even like I said, a factor of 10, that's 80% of your marketing budget, not your development budget at all. So you're reaching not enough people. You're not getting enough dollars to pay for your dollars of marketing, let alone your development costs. So I think at that point, how effective really was the marketing? I mean, word of mouth is king. And we're seeing that very much in social media, in YouTube videos, people talking about these games, getting excited about them. That makes a difference. The ads, the gaming rags, the traditional marketing avenues, they don't seem to be mattering anymore. And that's an interesting thing for indies too, because indie developers traditionally have been very focused on getting a publisher to get that marketing side of things, to get Steam behind their games. And in this environment, in this ecosystem, I don't think that's very effective at all. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of these indie AA games that become very popular. You're ending up seeing that they don't have a publisher. They are self-publishing, and they're doing everything themselves, because if you can get a following on Twitter, if you can get a following on social media, if you can get people talking about your game, that is more powerful than anything you can spend money on. And it's an interesting situation to be in, because advertising isn't as effective as it used to be. We're basically tuning it out because we've had it for decades and we've grown up with ads, so we don't pay attention to them. We tune them right out. We ignore them for the most part. And word of mouth, that makes a difference, because if it's in your feed and you see somebody else that you trust, that you follow, talking about a game, that's going to be worth 1,000,000 times more than some ad in your feed that happens to come randomly to you from, X marketing or YouTube marketing or Facebook marketing or what have you. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on that. Now, going over to a different game, a successful game, Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 had a lower budget, so that is in their favor. The estimate is about, they said that they spent about $100 million and Sony doubled it. So we're going to talk $200 million. We're going to give them $200 million. And we're going to give them a massive marketing budget. We're going to give them the same marketing budget as Concord, $300 million. So now that we're in the whole $500 million. However, Helldivers 2 was massively successful. You can see 458,000 simultaneous players. That's more than owners of Concord. Even by a factor of 10, you're talking, well, no, not by a factor of 10. By a factor of 5, it's more owners than Concord. And then you can see here owner estimates are between 12 to 55 million. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's take the average of that 12 and 55 and make it 34 million. But at 34 million, that's a substantial amount of sales, because 34 times 40, so that's $1.3 billion. And then you subtract that 500 million, and you're left with $860 million in profit. Whereas Concord lost money, Helldivers 2 made massive amounts of money. And that's certainly to the quality of the game. And also, they were more connected with their user base. They had a social media presence. They used that social media presence very effectively. They didn't go, insider track on gaming rags and use all their little connections like Concord did, which is basically they did that through Sony. Helldivers 2, still Sony, but they didn't do the same thing. They had an existing audience. They had an existing user base. They had an existing successful title that they could bank on, and they used that social media presence with that following to project them out to this end result. So, I don't know. That's just my thoughts on the situation. You guys can let me know in the comments what you guys think. I'd love to hear what your opinions are, because this is just all from my perspective as an indie developer, as someone who has notoriously ignored ads since my childhood. But I don't know. Are you guys ignoring ads? Does it not even register for you when you see an ad on a website or on a video or what have you? Let me know, because I really want to know what your experience has been and whether those things work on you. Because, like I said, they don't work on me, and I'm just assuming everybody's like me, but they might not be. So, yeah, let me know. And if you like these kind of videos, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you guys later.